Welcome to the Big Fat Real Estate Checks podcast with Marco Kozlowski, where we help investors like you get the knowledge and skills you need to replace your JOB with passive cash flow for life.
Hey, Marco here. I really wanted to share with you our earlier podcast that we created. Now, our mics were not the best, but the content was really strong, and I know you will learn a lot. We had an absolute blast recording this, and I know you're absolutely going to love it as much as we loved recording it. This extremely content-rich information will not only give you the edge in your real estate investing business, but in everyday life. Enjoy.
How to find deals. So
let's do it.
3, 2, 1.
You can count.
I think we're... You can count. Look, Mikey can do it. Let's talk about how to find deals. If you're a beginner and you don't know where to start, first I think is pick the asset class. Pick the asset class that you're looking for. Do you want to get into single families? Do you want to look at multis? Do you want to do storage unit facilities, mobile home parks?
RV park.
Hotel, whatever. I don't recommend you start with hotel at all because it's not only complicated on the real estate side, but on the purchase as well, and due diligence items are expansive. And if you're not familiar, I recommend that you don't start there. I'm glad that I didn't start there, and I've been doing this a while, and I'm still learning new things when I'm buying hotels and creating new processes on a daily basis when I'm doing these things. So it's not a recommendation, not a recommended start. Now, let's start with, I guess, either a single family or small property, something under maybe 5 units.
Yeah.
Let's start with that.
Yeah.
Something under 5 units.
4 and under.
Yeah.
Residential.
Sure.
Basically. Yeah.
Or 5. Let's do 4 and under.
Yeah.
Actually, that's
4 and under. Let's do 1 to 3.
Let's do between 3 and 5. What is that number?
Let's do 3 plus a shed.
Pick a number between 3 and 5. Oh, 4. What a great idea.
I like that.
Yes. So anything under 5. How's that?
Okay.
Are we in agreement?
We're in
Rock,
agreement.
paper, scissors, go. Okay.
Yes.
So first step would be, I think, going on the interweb, going on the line, and opening up either your phone or your browser and going on to Craigslist. That is probably the easiest way to find deals, period. And I always get mocked when I tell people that I find properties on Craigslist. They literally do exactly what he just did, which is start giggling.
We all do.
Because it's like, why would you ever go on Craigslist to find property? It doesn't make any sense, right? Because there's no deals on Craigslist. It's impossible. It can't happen. Well, there's actually...
Nobody sells
That's when
property
you
on
find
Craigslist.
stereos and shit. That's what, because people are perceived in go on Craigslist to buy a cell phone or a computer or a hard drive or whatever it is.
Tickets.
Porn.
Tables or shit like that. But a house, like a property, it's not common. Put it that way.
Or they giggle. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, doesn't make any
Agreed.
sense. And I tell people, like, look on Craigslist, and I think I'm freaking crazy. So if you go on Craigslist, and I recommend, now let's talk about not buying necessarily in your area. Let's tackle that for a second.
Sure.
Now, I'm Canadian. Everyone in this room is Canadian, and I buy properties specifically in the U.S. and anywhere in the U.S. I don't care where the property is because I'm not going to be managing the property. That is not something I'm going to do. Most people want to buy properties in their area because they want to look at it, see it, smell it, deal with it. If there's a problem. They want to be able to be there if something goes wrong. I understand that. I get it. But if your intention is to make as much money as possible on equity and on cash flow, your area might not be best. So if you live in an area that has very, like, let's say Syracuse, New York was where I first started looking at property because it was close to the Canadian border. Mm-hmm. And I bought a property for, I think, $38,000 in Syracuse in 1999. And if I were to buy the same property today, it would probably be, I could buy it for $38,000. Like the appreciation has been 0 in 20 years. I could probably still find property. It was in a shitty part of town, and there were bullet holes everywhere. I was excited to actually, I've never owned a piece of property in my whole life, and I was excited that I actually was able to buy something.
Add some
And get a
unique
tenant.
features with the bullet holes.
Yes. It was ventilation systems.
Ventilation system for the moisture, yes.
Exactly. That's what
it's
it was
for.
sold as, yeah. And in hindsight, I looked at things that were close to me, which is still not that close because I was in Montreal and Syracuse isn't that close at all. I should have found a better area that was further away that would have made me more money. And the beauty of Craigslist is you can really go anywhere in the country very quickly just by doing a search. So I recommend for the highest profitability anything east of the Mississippi. Only because, and anything touching the Mississippi. So if you're any state that's touching the Mississippi, like Arkansas touches the Mississippi, any state that is east of the Mississippi or touching the Mississippi, Oklahoma touches the Mississippi. So you have all these great states that have fairly low home values compared to what the rents can be. In California, I might have to buy a property that's $700,000, but the rent's $1,800 a month, or $2,000 a month, and the mortgage on a $700,000 property is a lot more than $2,000 a month. So by the numbers, you can't make rent payments based on mortgage payments. But I can find a property in Mississippi that for $30,000, $40,000 that I can rent out for $600 a month.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I can buy a mobile, like if we're talking, economies of scale, I can buy a mobile home in a park. I can put a mobile home for free, like zero. I just have to pay the moving costs, which is all in probably $4,000 or $5,000, depending on where it's coming from. And I can rent that out for $700 a month. So I'm paying $4,000 or $5,000 to make $700 a month in a park I already own. Yeah. So it just makes sense. So understand that you want to be able to get into properties that are cheap enough where the rents make sense.
Yes, agreed.
Right? So if the rents don't make sense, don't look there. That's the first kind of rule of thumb. So if you were to go into Craigslist, I would do a very simple search of, first you would look at an area, pick an area, it doesn't matter where. And any area is fine as long as it's east of the Mississippi. All right. And
well, hold on. Is there any area fine? So I gotta for myself anyways, I won't touch anything that has like so just go for population wise. I won't touch anything that's under 30,000 population. So you did Syracuse, I think they have more than 30,000 people.
No, Syracuse.
At least.
But what if you pick a suburb of Syracuse that's 2 hours away and it has a town, the population is 5,000.
I think that's something you do in your due diligence period.
Yeah, well, okay.
If you want to save time, right?
Well, Frank has a spreadsheet.
I used to have lots of spreadsheets on this shit.
He still has. He's not. He gets
He's a
withdrawal
closet,
once in a while.
He's a closet. He's in the closet spreadsheet.
I went back in the closet. But no. But saying anything, I just think it's, for me, I would look at that. Like if I don't recognize a city, then most likely it doesn't have a high population. But that's just me. But you can continue. You can buy it anywhere, really. Someone still has to live there.
But we're not talking about buying now. I think you're at the point where just finding,
okay,
right? So let's look for.
Because here's the thing: is if I find a property in an area that has 5,000 people, and I can buy the property for $2,000,
yes, granted.
would you buy it?
Well, yeah.
Would you buy it?
Yeah,
the rents are $400 a month.
Okay, you got 5,000
Frank
people
wouldn't
going
buy
out. But you know what? In those towns, they're dying
like,
off. Those towns eventually, no one's migrating there. That's the thing.
I get it, but it'd be paid off in like 5 months.
Yes, it will be. Okay, well, using that scenario, yes, okay.
Okay.
But realistically...
But what if it needs a lot of work? Then what?
I wouldn't touch it.
And I wouldn't touch it either.
I wouldn't touch it.
So, like I said, we can have these discussions for sure. Now, Frank's right, but I'm right too. We're both right. It's a matter of preference and risk. Mm-hmm. When I first started, I didn't give a shit. I just wanted to buy a property. I didn't care if it was in Syracuse. I don't care if I went there, I got murdered. I just wanted to buy a damn property. Mm-hmm. That's how you are when you first start. You know, you just want a fucking deal. I want to make money, right?
Right.
And I get it, but
there's different ways to fish. Just, do you want to cast the net and then exclude the fish, or do you want to literally specifically pick the fish?
Listen, my tackle box have different bait on it than I did 5 years ago.
Absolutely.
And it always
but
gonna change.
at first, what we want to do is just cast a big net.
That's what I'm thinking.
Right?
Agreed. I gotta agree.
Since we're talking about fishing, let's go into the stages of fishing.
Yeah.
At first, when you start fishing, all you want to do is catch a fucking fish.
Correct.
Right?
So-
I don't care what it is. I just want to catch a fish. Right?
And that's the rush in itself too, and you learn from catching the
Right.
fish. Yes.
And then once you've caught a fish and you just catch any fish and you're okay with it, then you want to catch the biggest fish. Right?
Or the fish you want to eat
Right.
too. 'cause
Right.
you're not
Then you
gonna
want to
eat
catch the big. Then you go for specific fish or biggest fish, and then at one point when you're a really good fisherman and you've caught any fish, then a specific fish, then the biggest fish, then you go into the most elusive, hardest to catch fish at that stage. Right?
Yeah.
You don't care when you catch it, but that's what you're going for, and you could spend months. And you'd be still satisfied because you're going after that hard fish.
Yes.
Correct.
So there's a stage of fishermen, right? And at first, now where we're fishing now is not where we started,
Absolutely.
100%.
No.
But in recognizing that, I'm going to recommend net first, and just basically fish with dynamite. Just throw a stick in and see what pops up in the water.
Correct. Yeah.
I agree, and that's where we start. And sometimes I forget that we did. That's what we do. You cast the net or throw dynamite and see what comes up and what surfaces, and you grab it because you get emotional. You get that rush. You want something.
Let's have the
Let's do
person
that.
listening. If you're listening right now, let's get you
Cast the net, get some
something,
dynamite.
right? Let's just throw that dynamite in, and no real fish were hurt during this broadcast. By the way, if you work for PETA, we're very kind to our animals.
Yes. We don't fish with
We
dynamite.
don't fish with dynamite. Not
Not even close.
no. With something else.
Okay.
Anyway, so so go into Craigslist and go into the real estate for sale section. So you'll see you'll click on location, then there'll be real estate for sale, and then there's by owner and by broker. Now, which one do you think is going to be better, by owner or by broker? Yes, Francesco.
By owner.
Yes, that is correct.
Do I win anything?
yes, you gonna
Yes.
high five.
All right,
Very
I'll
nice,
take
I
the
like.
high five.
You get to stay on for the
Yes.
next episode.
I get to stay. My seat is my seat.
Your seat
There you
stays
go.
warm
Your
now.
seat stays
warm.
Yes, your seat stays
Yeah.
warm now. So yes, we want to go by owner. Now, the beauty of Craigslist is that it only has a 45-day memory, which means that if I post something today in 46 days, it's gone. It's forgotten. It's no longer available.
It's got to be reposted, basically.
It has to be refreshed every 45 days, but most people don't know that. So they post something on Craigslist, and then it just gets, and they get a lot of calls at first because the first 2-3 pages are fresh, right? And then it gets pushed down, pushed down, pushed down, pushed down. And as it gets to page 4, 5, 6, 10,
100.
hundreds of pages,
Yes.
they don't get any calls anymore. So who's going to be more motivated to sell? The person that just posted or the person that has been there gotten tons of calls, said, holy shit, I'm going to get top dollar for my property, and then just waited it out. Maybe dealt with a Yahoo that didn't even know how to buy a property, maybe just came out of a seminar, maybe even tied up their property, never closed because they didn't really want to buy it. They just tried to wholesale it, but they didn't get it at the right price, so they couldn't wholesale it, so they basically just let it go or disappeared or never called the seller back. So he has this PTSD over someone that's called an investor, which is a whole other, we could go into a whole other broadcast, because I never call myself an investor because there's too many people that call themselves that and burn that basically that word, and people don't want to touch you if you say that you're an investor, but that's either here nor there for now. So when I first recommend people start looking in Craigslist, specifically if you're doing 1, 2, 3, or 4 units, is start at the back, and you can,
So when you do your search, just click on last first.
The
and then
last
work your way
page,
around.
and then just work your way backwards, right? So go to the end and then work your way backwards. And the simplest thing to email is your property still for sale?
Yeah.
And that's it. Is your property still for sale? And then send another email. Is your property still for sale? Is your property still for sale? And I just do that 100 times.
Yeah, as many times as you can.
100, 200, 500, in as many states as you can. And, if you start from the back and go maybe, 15 days into the last, you're going to get some people to say yes.
And maybe just, to put because a lot of people think when you do this that if you're getting 50 answers that you have to buy all 50. You don't have to do that. This is the concept of fishing, where you're allowed to throw the fish back in the water. once you fished it.
Well, the same reason the reason you're doing that is the property's still for sale is because, like you said, most people that post on Craigslist, like even owners, they don't know that it expires in 45 days, and they don't know how to remove it if the house is for sold. Just keep it
or
there.
forget about it.
Yeah, or forget about it. Like, all right, whatever. I'm not getting any calls no more.
So it's saving
so
you
it doesn't
time.
matter.
Ultimately, you're saving yourself time. So is it still for sale? If they say no, then that's it. You don't have to bother with this anymore. If they say yes, then you know that you have a potential lead.
Right, and we're not, I do want to underline, we're not looking at pictures.
No.
We're not doing any,
Not even reading the ad.
we're not even reading the ad. We're just basically replying, is a property still for sale? Next, is a property still for sale? Next, is a property still for sale? Is this still for sale? Has this sold? Has this sold? Don't ask, is this still available? That is the wrong thing. That is not what I said. If you ask if this is still available, you're not coming from a position of strength. You're coming from a position of weakness. Is this still available? Please, sir, may I have some more? It's literally like begging in Oliver Twist. It is not the right sequence of words. It is not dominant language. It's not strong language. It's very weak, submissive, docile language, and we don't want to use that at all. We want to use something that's a little bit more strong. So, has this sold? Is
Is it still for sale?
is it still for sale? Those kinds of things, and then you're going to start from the very end and work your way back, and you're going to get some yeses. Now, what do you think the important questions are? When you're buying a property that's between 1 and 4 units. So what are the important things that we need to know in order to really determine if something makes sense or not? So let's start with those questions that you can actually ask these sellers.
Yeah.
So on a residential, I would ask obviously the selling price if there's any repairs, because you need to know if there's any repairs.
Repairs is very important. So I want to know not only are there repairs, but how much is it going to cost? Because if they say yes, there's repairs, then I have to ask again,
How much?
how much? And I'd rather just ask the question once. So the objective here is not only to buy properties, but it's to buy properties in the shortest amount of time possible. I call this folding time. We don't have a lot of time on this planet. And as I've said before, I personally have way more time behind me than I do in front of me. And I want to maximize whatever time I have. And if you're 19, 20 years old and listening to this, you're in a really great spot, because if you actually follow what I tell you to do, what we tell you to do, in fact, in the next 3 years, you're done. You never have to work again. You could easily have $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month coming in, never having to work again, never having to use your own money, never having to go to university or college.
Or you can still do all those things.
Yeah, but you do
for
because
fun.
you want to,
Yeah.
not because you have to. You don't have to find a job. You want to find a
them
job.
from going from college to university.
Well, my kids all go to university except my youngest, who's a professional gamer, but they all do. They're all wanting to. They do what they love, not what they have to.
Exactly.
Right?
And that's super important.
I
Yeah.
had fun in college.
I never went to college.
Even if you're not going there for the academics, you're going there just for the social and the partying. That's
Fair enough.
It's worth the thing.
Frat parties.
Fair enough.
Well, it is. So
It's a good time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you do that,
so-
actually, you're finishing your thought. I'm sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
don't be sorry. Go ahead. This is a discussion.
So when you get a response back, okay, maintenance is one thing, but if you're looking at, you need to know what the gross is. The
Well,
income.
if there is growth, so you got to ask yourself if there's a tenant in there, because they might be selling their own home on Craigslist.
If you're doing a single family, yes, or
Well, they're single family.
like
We're only
duplex?
going up to 4 units.
We're
Remember
going
that.
to
It could be tenant is sort of occupied, right? Owner occupied.
Well, I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the address is also very important.
Yes.
I want to know what the exact address is with the zip code. So now, some of you might be thinking, well, it's in the ad, but I haven't read the ad, and I'm not going to read the ad.
and
because
sometimes it isn't in the ad.
or the full address is not in the ad, and I want the full address with zip code. And the reason I want that is because I want to be able to go on different websites and find out what the value is of the property if the price makes sense.
Okay. So let's go down. So you want the address, full address, including zip code.
Yes.
Yeah, but
You
there's
wanna
another reason
know-
for that address too. Because if you're working backwards, that address or that ad will disappear,
Yes.
right? Off of Craigslist. So
True.
at least you have the address in an email thread saying, okay, I know it's 123
Main Street.
whatever.
So
you
let's count them down again. So you want the full address with zip.
Yep.
You want to know if there are repairs, and if so, how much.
Yep.
Vacancy.
Vacancy, yeah. If
Is there a
if
tenant, no
if it's
tenant?
a tenant, no tenant. If there is a tenant, what's the gross income? So what's the monthly rent on each unit?
If there's more than
If
one.
there's more than one.
What else?
What else we want to know? Who pays utilities?
That's important.
So if you have a tenant, does the tenant pay for the utilities, or is the owner responsible for the utilities?
If it's single family, it should be the tenant. If it's multifamily, then it could be the
be
tenant
either or.
it could be either or shared.
Or shared.
Yeah, there's three possibilities there. Where the tenant pays the water, the tenant pays the power, but the water's paid by the owner. That's a shared utility.
Yeah.
Who manages? And again, you're not asking all these questions, so I just wanted to, we're just going through some of them, but we are asking all these questions.
I don't know, are we?
Well, we could,
Are we
I guess.
not?
We could.
We could.
Well, here's the
Pick
problem.
3, 4 of them.
I think picking 3 or 4 is.
Yeah. So asking for management.
Let's brain dump all the questions they could ask.
Yeah.
But the most important, at least the two that I would ask are, what's the address? Because with the address, I can check values. I can go on Zillow, and again, Zillow is it's off by 25% up or down, right? That's a huge margin. That's a 50% margin of error. If you think about it, 25 up, 25 down, that's 50% margin of error. That means if it says it's worth 100, it could be worth 125 or 75. That's $50,000 spread. We don't know. So I'm just going to loosey-goosely check to see.
And that's only one way of checking. So you can also corroborate
you
that.
go to Bank of America. There's
Bank of America. There's realestateComps.com. There's a few
bunch of
websites.
Yeah.
That you can use.
and they're all going to give you different values. In fact, if you are interested in, we actually have a marketing sequence that you can pounce in on, and I'm gladly gift you just for being awesome and listening to this series. It's called Get a Deal in 14 Days. If you want one, just email us at marco@marcokozlowski.com, and we will get that taken care of for you immediately. So just email me, marco@marcokozlowski.com, and I'll send you a access to getting a deal by Tuesday, actually, where this will be all laid out. So we want to know address. We want to know
Number of units.
Gross.
Utilities.
Who pays utilities?
Is it managed by
Who
a third
manages
party?
it?
or
Are there
is it-
tenants? Are they paying? What's the gross income?
Yeah.
What's
the net income?
Well,
According to them.
yeah, sure. Net income. Okay.
You understand you're going to verify all this afterwards. This is just getting as much information so you can make your initial assessment of, what you want to pay for this.
And at the same time, I wouldn't ask too many questions, because if you ask a laundry list of questions, then you become a pain in the ass to deal with, and no one wants to deal with a pain in the ass.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that was pretty much the exhaustive list initially. Obviously, you're going to have a lot more question as you deep dive. If it is a potential property, there's a whole series of questions and there's a whole series of steps you got to take. But I think that's the
Pick 2 or 3.
Yeah, pick 2 or 3 from those sets
And start with that.
Start with
Yeah.
that. But yes, you're right. The address is going to be very important, and the gross and the occupancy, or even the number of units. So pick maybe 3 or 4 out of that.
Yes, and again, we're not going to take a look at the property at all. First, we're going to buy the property based on numbers.
And that's hard.
I know.
I know when I first started, I said, don't look at the damn pictures, but I got to click on the damn picture. I want to see something. And again, you don't want to get emotional because you're not living there. You're not going there.
No. And if it's a piece of shit, if it's a dump, we're going to find that out real quick.
But people are going to cheat and they're going to look at the pictures.
I understand.
They're going to glance up.
Looking at the pictures is one. The reason we say don't look at the picture is so that you actually answer every ad. Because if you look at the pictures, you start getting an emotional involvement in it, and then you might say, you know what, I wouldn't buy this anyway, so I'm not even going to ask the questions. But the point of this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a process. We're trying to teach you a process to get things done. The objective is not to necessarily buy a property. The objective is to get as many properties, and hopefully one of them in there will force you to buy it because it meets all these criteria, and you can make a boatload of cash with it.
And you won't need money to buy it, because you'll have asset-based lenders that will want to lend you the money, lend the property the money. They're not going to lend you the money ever, but they're lending the asset the money. Mm-hmm. And allowing them to make a cash flow and allowing you to make a cash flow, so their money can make a safe return using the asset that you found. And again, if you've listened to past podcasts, if you're trying to do things in a 15-minute increment in a very short period of time, because you have very little amount of time, in that 15 minutes, every picture you look at is one more email that you're not sending out. So if you have 15 minutes and you can send out 100 emails as your property is still for sale in that 15 minutes, you're going to be able to buy a lot more properties in those 50-minute increments than you will if you're looking at a picture and only sending 10. So the more you send out, the more responses you're going to get. And you should get about I'd say 20, 30% response. If you send out 100, you should get 20, 25 emails back. And then you send it from is your property still for sale? And then from that, you'll send out a second series of questions, which is what's the address, whatever questions that we just discussed, yes. And then send those questions back. And then when they respond, you might also want to ask, in the second question, curious why you're selling.
Yeah.
Not a bad question to ask either. Just curious why you're selling. Because if they're selling because of medical reasons, or they're relocating, or they're going through a divorce, those are all Ds. And we have a podcast and an episode actually on the 5 Ds. So these are the reasons why people sell. You'll see medical issues more than any other, or lawsuits more than any other. And they just need money. They need cash. And they need cash right away. And again, no one's been contacting these people for a period of time. You're now contacting them. They're like, holy shit, you're exactly the solution that they've been praying, and suddenly they get this email. And you'll be shocked as to what you find. It's pretty cool.
Doing that exercise, because you're going to get a lot of emails in return back. And I remember we doing an exercise to see which ones, there's methods to determine, that's not foolproof, but there's methods to determine which ones are more motivated. And it depends on the response. If the response is long and they're talking about their issue and there's emotional things in the 5 Ds are in there, or one of the 5 Ds, they got divorced or whatever, that's an emotional seller. They need money and they need it now. So these are the responses that I look for, that you should be looking for if they're long, looking for if there's any of those 5 Ds in there, and then you may have a little nibble on your, we're casting nests, so I guess it won't be a nibble, but
their gills are in there.
Their gills are there, but that's something to look at for sure. As you keep going through this process.
And if their response is like, call me, they're generally not motivated. If you really need to sell a property, I don't recommend that you call them, because you don't know quite necessarily what you're doing yet. If you're a complete beginner, and if you're quite advanced, they're special. I'm not going to deter you from calling them. Go ahead, call them, and hope it goes well. But if you really know what to say and how to say it and what order to say things in, you can get really far, not only on that deal, but then you can get the deal behind the deal. Because if they have one, they might have 10. And depending on how you conduct yourself on that one, there's maybe 10, 15 other deals and assets behind that one. So,
but you can also sabotage yourself with one call.
You could, but again, it's up to you and the risk that you're willing to take. And we take it from there. But ultimately, if you go on Craigslist, you start from the back, you go east of the go on Craigslist, start
east from the Mississippi.
East of the Mississippi. Start from the back. Ask if the property is still for sale. Then follow up with a couple 3 questions that allow them to finding out why they're selling, the address, and the pertinent information that we need, and then they respond back. You're going to have some cherries in there that are most likely that you're going to be able to buy if you follow the right steps to buy your first property using none of your own money, because you don't have to. And it's very exciting, and it's really that simple. If you do that, I think you'll be very excited at the result. So let me know how that goes too. Marco@marcokozlowski.com. Love to hear your feedback and love to see how well you do. And of course, I'd love to gift you with how to get a deal by Tuesday. And I think if you follow those steps, by Tuesday, you'll get a deal. It's pretty straightforward. Thanks for joining us today.
If you like this episode of Big Fat Real Estate Checks, then show some love by leaving a comment and a good rating. Also, as a thank you for tuning in today, we've got a special free gift. The journey to passive cash flow for a life starts by finding deals, and it's easier than you think. Simply go to getdealsbytuesday.com, enter your email address, and we'll send you a free quick start course called Deals by Tuesday. Even if it's 11 p.m. Monday night, this course will show you how to find discounted real estate deals by Tuesday. It's that fast and simple. Go to getdealsbytuesday.com and start your journey toward life-changing cash flow today. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.